Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I'm here with a brilliant leader today. And I'm really excited because we don't talk about money. It's kind of taboo to talk about money sometimes. But if you're running a business, or if you want to start a business, or if you're living life in this physical reality right now, you're probably going to have to put your hands on money from time to time. So we're going to dive into that conversation in just a second. It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur. Awesome. So Connie Vander Zanden is on a mission to help entrepreneurs live the lifestyles they desire by learning the simple steps, structure, and discipline to create and save money. With 34 years of accounting and bookkeeping experience, a variety of industry knowledge, and her own real-life business growth journey since 2001, Connie developed the Going Beyond Revenue Cash Handling System, focusing on cash flow planning that creates profitable and sustainable businesses. Connie is a true Oregonian, like me, born and raised in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, where she spends time with her husband of 34 years and their fur kid. I wasn't born in Oregon, but I was raised in Oregon. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you, Molly. It's great to be here.
Yes, so happy to have you.
People are always wondering why Oregon, though. Why Oregon for you?
For me, we moved there when I was 7 because my mom's husband's kids lived there. And I mean, in my opinion, I've been to 32 countries and I travel the United States and North America all the time. And it's definitely one of the most stunningly beautiful places on earth. Yeah.
It's the seasons. It's the seasons for me.
Yeah. I can't do the rain for half the year anymore. I get seasonal affect disorder or depression when it's too cloudy all the time. So I chase the sun as much as possible, but Oregon will always be home for me. So tell us about your journey and, branching out from bookkeeping and accounting to actually helping people manage their finances in a bigger way. Tell us about all of that.
Sure. Well, it's funny is I kind of defaulted into bookkeeping and accounting to my math instructor, high school math instructor's dismay. He was really disappointed that I had chosen that career path. But it was easy. Math has always been easy for me. And so it's what my mom did. And so that's what I just fell into. And it was just supposed to be a short-term thing until we had kids. And we had some infertility issues. And so I just ended up staying in the field. And then I built a business on it, and not until I was around 50. So I'd been in business about 16 years before I finally realized I didn't have to do anything I didn't really like. So I pivoted the business. Now, there was something about 19 years ago when I did start the business that I really loved. And that had always been one-on-one conversation with business owners, to go into their place of business at the time, talk to them about how numbers were supporting them, making things easier to see the numbers, and having conversations about what their big dreams were for their business. And so when I got to rethink about what would I do to pivot, that was the key component. That and my purpose, my human design purpose, my astrology, my everything is saying to me that I'm here to cure a wound around money for myself and to teach others on how to do that. And so we've just combined the two. And that really is my happy spot to sit and talk about business with almost anyone. But mostly it's about with women entrepreneurs, because we just don't have anybody to talk to about those numbers.
Yeah. And it's not a normal thing to have conversations about those numbers, for sure. And I want to just acknowledge and appreciate that you brought in the magical reasons why it's so aligned for you to be doing what you do. I love human design. And I think there's so much affirmation or clarity that can come from understanding your human design chart, which is a lot like an astrology chart, a little bit different, a little bit more detailed. But yeah, so cool. And so cool to be listening to that information and then taking action to follow that path. So what would you say, because you've talked to a lot of business owners in the career that you've had, and a lot of people about their money and their financial worlds and how they're using their money, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that people generally make when it comes to their finances, especially in regards to their businesses?
Well, the first one is usually that we don't recognize the business as its own entity. So usually when solopreneurs start out, we use our personal bank accounts to run our business and our personal through. And not only does that take a lot of work to untangle that piece, but the business actually doesn't really understand what we need from it. And so if we can understand, first off, is our business is its own entity. It has its own energy, its own purpose. And it's really here for people to give it money so it can support us. And if you can make that energetic switch and like treat it like a business and give it its own bank account, give it its own purpose and mission, and then you can show up and do your magic, that's probably the first thing. When you do that, then you stop using the business like a bank, which is what happens with a lot of solopreneurs. We just keep pulling money out as you need it. And the business never understands how much it really needs to create to support your lifestyle. And it also helps it keep a clean purpose. And so money, having an intention around how money is used in the business is the other key piece. That's why a lot of people don't save for taxes as money comes in, especially when we're in that hustle phase. It's all about, we've usually spent the money before it comes in. And so money doesn't stick around. It flows in and flows straight back out. And so how can you create a cash handling system with intention so that money sticks around and then you can pay later? So it's changing that flow, because money really loves to stick around in our bank accounts. And once it feels like you want it and that you love it, it'll ask its friends to come along. And it's funny how that works. And I always tell people, you just have to try it. But if you can create a little bit of sustainability and create a savings account with a little bit of profit, it'll make your life a lot easier. You'll stress less about it. The business will stress less and money flows a lot easier. So those are the two things: is stop treating your business like a bank, that it's its own entity, like you can have conversations with it and everything, and that you give money an intentional use and stop change how that flows through your business.
Yeah, I love what you just said. And treating your business like an entity outside of yourself is so challenging, because so many solopreneurs, especially if you're not even using a DBA, doing business as, which mine is Wild Hearts Raise Up. If you're doing business under your name, and maybe even your name is your LLC, it's really easy to collapse the two things and think that you are your business and your business is you. But it's so much more challenging to look at the issues your business is facing or the desires your business has when you've collapsed those two. Then when you separate them out, you get to be co-creators. You get to be two entities with a common mission and a common goal. And I love that you mentioned that the business has its own desires and its own vision. I talk about that on one of my year planning calls that I do every year, of actually having a conversation with the entity of your business and asking it what it wants to create, not the book you think you have to make, but what your business wants you to help create as well. Super valuable. And just the awareness around money. I've been studying money and studying personal finance, especially more this past year, but talking to money and having that personal relationship with it and letting it hang out with me more often, like putting 10% of my income away so that there is a place in my life where there's just a growing pile of money, so that like sometimes I have to really try hard not to spend that 10% account where I'm tithing to myself, but just having that little bit of stashed away money has allowed so much more inflow to happen, because I am now not just someone who knows I can spend money and who knows I can make money, but I'm also somebody who can have money. And that is getting proved to me every day that I continue playing that game.
Yeah. That part of that is that generationally, we were raised as paycheck to paycheck. A lot of us were that middle income or low income, where you maybe didn't have enough when you got to the end. You know, my mom was a single mom for a long time, so we didn't always have enough to cover us all the way through the end. And so we were raised in that environment, and that's the same environment we bring to our business. And so by keeping some money, having some money, creating that reserve, and everybody's number is different. It doesn't have to be 3 to 6 months, but those are good things to strive for. It takes a lot of, it changes generationally, that it's okay to have money, and that it's not going to make us greedy or horrible people. It's just there to support us, and to shift that in our mindset and how we talk to it is really key.
Totally. I totally agree with you. And I think no matter what you were raised with, there's always going to be some reality with money that you've adopted unconsciously.
Yes.
That either it was your family or it was a family you saw, or it was, you know, the fights that were had over the money that was there when you were a kid. There's always so many stories and lies and limiting beliefs that show up around money, no matter your upbringing, that are worth looking at and unpacking and rewriting those stories so that you can have a different reality with money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. So what are some of the going beyond revenue, cash handling tips that you would give us? I don't want you to give your whole show away, but what are some of the insights and gems that we should be aware of?
Sure. Well, I am also a Profit First professional. So if you've read the book Profit First, there's a lot of structural pieces that come from that book. And I just didn't think the book went far enough. And when I first became one, Mike Michalowicz, the author, really encouraged us to make it our own. And so the pieces I filled in is like creating intentionality around how you want your money used. And but opening a couple bank accounts is the first step. And you can do it. This is the first thing. If you just open a savings account tomorrow, you can call your bank and do that really quickly. And like you said, start putting a certain percentage of every dollar that comes in into that account. When I first started, it was 0.5%, because 98% of what was coming in was going out for debt and paying my team and everybody else. So it could be really small. But the intent part of this is just to get a new habit and prove to yourself that you can save some money. So open the savings account. Every time money comes in, put 1%, 0.5%, 2% into that account, and keep doing that for the first 90 days. And then go back and evaluate what you would like to do with that savings. And like, yes, you can do it. And yes, even if you are 98% going out, you can make some shifts easily to do that. So that's a quick action step everybody can do. And it works for personal and business. And then the second step is really have to look at your numbers. You got to know your numbers. We have to know where we're starting from. And sometimes that's helpful to have somebody else do it with you, but there's no shame around it. You just need to like bring out the flashlight, piece of paper. If you like spreadsheets, great. You don't have to use an accounting tool, but get in there and really figure out what your expenses are. So many times our ego tells us one thing and it's not. Like I thought I was making $10,000 a month and it wasn't covering my expenses. And I when I really looked at it, I wasn't. I was consistently making $12,000 a month in the accounting business when we were growing. And so that's a big shift. It doesn't seem like that much, but it is a big shift in dollars. And so I was spending unintentionally that extra money. It just didn't feel, because I couldn't see it, because I wasn't paying attention to what was going on. Mm-hmm. So know where you're starting so you can create an intentional plan on how you're going to spend moving forward.
Yeah. I would also add, for me, having the savings account in a different bank so that it wasn't so easy to just use it right away made a really big difference for me. So I actually just opened a checking account at a different bank and I connected it so that I could bill pay myself from my existing bank. And every time income comes in, I just send 10% right over there. And it's possible to get it out. I can get it out. I have at times, because I've been making more investments in the past year, I have taken it out and put it into other things like a Roth IRA and stuff like that. But it's complicated and it's extra steps. It's extra steps for me to go and take that money back out. So make it as hard as you have to make it so that you don't spend that money that you're trying to save right now. And it's okay to do that. You got to figure out what works for you and sort of hack yourself into a new system.
Yeah, it's like giving it your system or your rituals a little jump start, right? Is if we could do it, we probably would already be doing it. So we need to create something like tying it to, like people say, if you want a new ritual, tie it to something you already do on a consistent basis. So if you like brush your teeth on a everyday basis, add affirmations in or add a thing into it. So it's kind of the same thing. But if you are a natural spender and it's easy to spend, which our society is really common for that, because we don't do change in paper money much anymore, especially during COVID. It's mostly plastic. And we are so disconnected from how we spend on our plastic. If you need to create more connection to it, like adding little steps to that, knowing if you are a natural spender, adding a little pause, like I don't make purchases. I have to give myself at least 24 hours to 48 hours before I say yes on a purchase. So I can make that connection and really get more in our bodies before we do that thing with the plastic. It's just too easy. It's a lot different than counting dollars out.
Yeah.
To pay for something.
Yeah. It's easy to pretend that that's not the number. Yeah. Yeah, I started realizing that I had a little bit of an Amazon thing going for a while, not so much anymore, especially with more awareness around how Amazon is actually run. But I started recognizing that I got the joy hit from the purchasing process, not actually from the thing showing up. It was like, oh yeah, there's that thing I bought and nice, now I have it. I can use it if I want to. It's here. But the joy was happening in the finding it and putting it in my cart, not so much from the receiving it. So what I started doing was just putting things in my cart and never buying them. And then I got the joy of like, I found this thing that I'd like to have. And then I put it in my cart and there it is. I can see it. And sometimes I just say save for later so I can still see that list. And then when I come back a week later, a month later, next year, I'm like, I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't have to keep it in my cart anymore. But I realized that that was a situation and I had to get present with that was a spending habit that didn't need to be happening. But I want to rewind back a couple steps to what you said before, which is the awareness around what you're spending. I think that it's really uncomfortable if there isn't enough money coming in. And I've been in this place a lot in my life. I had the starving artist archetype going like way strong. And I had to break through a lot of limiting beliefs in order to start generating more income in my life and in my business. So I get it. I just want to say I've been there in all those hairy situations where you don't have the money to cover the situation that you're in. And it's easy to be in that space and just pretend like money isn't real or like it doesn't matter and just put your head in the sand and sort of ostrich away your reality with money. And that is, like you said, not very fun for money to come and play in that space. Money likes attention, even if it's attention on what isn't working and how there isn't quite enough money yet. The more you can just step over that threshold and give it your attention on a daily or a weekly basis, make a little ritual out of it, a little money date with yourself. Maybe you light a candle, make a cup of tea, do something good for yourself so it's not so affronting for you. The more you give it your attention, the more it will grow or the more that it will want to come and play with you. It's the same way if you walk into a room and your roommate or your partner or your kid just completely ignores you every single time you walk in the room, it's harder to feel like you want to hang out with them because you're being shut down. So if you keep shutting down to the entity or the energy of money, it's not going to want to hang out with you. It's like, this isn't fun. This doesn't feel good. So how can we like foster that connection and build that connection and really get clear, like you said, on every single dollar that's going out? What does it actually cost to be you? Not just how many subscriptions do you have and how many fees do you pay for your business, but what does it cost to be you? How many times do you go and get coffee and buy that latte? How many times do you hit Amazon or hit the shopping mall on a weekly or monthly basis? What does your standard of living actually cost? And find that dollar amount.
Yeah, that's the key, is because then you can actually make a request from your business. If you own up to what your lifestyle needs, you can make that request from the business. Now, there might be a period of time where you need to maybe slow down a little bit on the spending if you're still at your bare minimum, or if you realize that the business doesn't have enough income to meet your better goals. What other type of income could come in? Could you get a job for a short term? Could you create something to sell? Because as entrepreneurs and as creators, we have that power. I mean, that's why we're here, is we have enough creativeness in us to go out and just make something for somebody or ask, but we have to be willing to do that. But yeah, knowing what our lifestyle actually needs is key. And then the other piece was around knowing your numbers about ritual. Is I do it on Monday. So Money Mondays, or Sunday. I like to start my week off. Anytime I messed up, my credit cards would be all maxed out. So it was like, money was like, hey, you forgot to pay attention to us. You forgot to give us some one-on-one time. And I'd be like, yeah, I forgot. Let me, figure this out. But yeah, you do start creating that relationship with it. And it can be just a half hour. You can build into it. I like to do other revenue generational things as well after I update my numbers. But it is about making it a game or making it really connections. I light a candle. I have scents. I pull tarot cards. I really get in the space to do it. But yeah, if you aren't currently doing it, I do recommend that you start out weekly, and then you can scale back.
And what does someone do in that money date? What does your money date look like?
My money date looks like, now I use an accounting tool, but I've been using an accounting tool for 34 years. So, but first thing I do is I update my numbers, whether that's data entry or automating it is the easiest piece to do. And actually looking at my spending. I'm looking at all the balances, really appreciating what's in there. I appreciate, and I do ring a bell for all the revenue that came in that week. So I celebrate money, and then I make my transfers. I make my transfers based on my percentages into my different accounts. And then I pay anybody second. So I make sure I get paid first and all the money's in savings. And then I take care of paying any vendors or team members that need to be paid. And then I look at the end of the month, I look at what my plan was compared to actual and adjust as I need to. I do a little bit more cash flow planning just because I like to look ahead, because that's what I work with on clients. So I like to look ahead 90 days to see if there's any shortfalls or anything that needs to be adjusted. And then I do other revenue generations, billings, because I used to be the person that would do her own accounting at 1 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so I would forget to bill clients, and that makes it hard.
Yeah.
When you don't have money coming in. So it's billing clients or following up with clients, making sure I've followed up with anyone who had any interest, getting them on the books for conversations, those types of things. So
awesome.
Yeah. And so every week I do the same things for personal and for business. And then make sure I treat myself nice afterwards. So
yeah.
Have a bath or something.
Maybe you get a treat or a yummy activity that you reward yourself with for having had that money date and taken your head out of the sand and made a little ceremony out of it and dated the energy of money for a little while. So when you talk about forecasting or looking ahead at the cash flow for the next 90 days, what does that sort of entail?
Well, I like to use a spreadsheet because I want the tool to do some of the work for me. So we set it up so it adds and subtracts the numbers. And so I'm aware of like what the bank balance is going to be for the next 6 weeks and the next few months. And then what am I planning? Do credit cards, are they due certain times? When am I expecting revenue to come in? And so that I can plan ahead so I know if there needs to be transfers or if credit cards need to wait because of timing of the month, if it needs to wait a day or so because of how money's coming in. And it also gives me an idea of like, oh, no, I can't make that investment right now. Mm-hmm. I need to go create for that, and then I can make that investment. So, but yeah, I just use a Google spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet to do those types of things.
Yeah. I made myself a really fancy, I use Mac, so I have a numbers spreadsheet, and I have each month is a different column and each expense is a different line item. And then I also have lines for income coming in, IRS payments, subcontractors, because I have a virtual assistant and, my CPA and my bookkeeper and all that kind of stuff. Each has its own item. And then each month is a different color. So as January is going through, every time I pay a bill, there's more red on the calendar or on the money sheet. And as the year fills out, like 2020 just finished and the whole thing was just full rainbow. And that brings me joy. I get to fill in the rainbow as I go. And that makes it more fun to pay attention to my money sheet and look at, oh, I just paid my credit card. I'm going to go fill that colored box in because that feels really good. For me, checking boxes is a dopamine hit. It gives me some satisfaction. So I think having a spreadsheet is really handy, but even if it's just a piece of paper that you go and look at, or a special notebook, that's your money date notebook where you go and crunch those numbers and look at what's going on. The awareness and the attention is super important.
One of my coaches had like in your planner where you have the calendar, the monthly calendar, there's usually room on the side with notes. You can usually, do 1 through 31 and like track your revenue on that, how much revenue came in each day. You can, just have a little sheet of paper I think it's a matter of, since we're so disconnected from plastic spending, how can we like be aware of the transactions of how they're coming in? And there are free accounting tools that you can use that I really like, but there's an art there of tracking it, of like acknowledging it. Yep, I spent that. It added to my life. It's not about the shame and guilt around it. We need to change that piece, because we get a lot of that around debt, and debt was created when we didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. Now we know, we have an idea that that's not what we should have spent it on, or that didn't really fill us as much as we thought it would. So how do we change that now? But how can you change that shame and guilt? Because it's just using money. You just have different ideas of now that you're more wiser and you've been in business longer, so type of thing. You know better, you do better.
Totally. Yeah. I'm a big fan of access consciousness too. And they don't even call it debt, because the word debt has so much energy attached to it. They call it past expenditures. And that's really like you're focusing in on what you did buy. And sometimes it's like, oh, I had this credit card, so I just went shopping and maxed it out, and whoops, and shouldn't have done that. And sometimes, I mean, a lot of the credit debt that I have, or past expenditures that I have right now, were programs and courses and like things that I invested in so that I could get to where I'm at in my business now. So acknowledging whatever it was, whether it's good or bad, taking the shame and the guilt out of it, but acknowledging that you spent that money and that's what happened. And now you get to like wipe your debt clean. I have this part of my money date is going into Mint, which I use to just track where things are going. I don't really use it as a bookkeeping or a budgeting software, but I use it to just see what categories all my dollars are going into. And it also tracks my credit score. So I like to open Mint once a day and just see, did my credit score go up? And then it's like 6 days till your next like check of whether it's up or down again. And I'm like checking in all the time on Mint just to see, did my credit score change? Because I want to buy land someday. I want to buy property, and I want that credit score to go up so I get a better deal and save thousands of dollars potentially. So that's a fun game that I like to play with my money date, which is usually my money date is on Tuesday, 1 p.m. But I play with the Mint app all the time just because I like to see all the numbers changing and watch my net worth go up.
And that's so much healthier than like just constantly looking at your online banking.
Yeah.
A lot of the times when businesses first start, we put so much in to how well we're doing in our business based on where the bank balance is. And that's, if you can disengage with that behavior, you'll be doing yourself so much more pleasure. But yeah, I love access consciousness. The first tool I learned was to carry the money around you think a rich person would carry. And that was my first tool I used about having money. And I built it up and I've changed the dollars out and stuff. But that was the key piece of before I started my cash handling system.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's fun. And even Abraham Hicks talks about having $100 bill in your wallet and just looking at all the things you could buy if you wanted to, but keeping that $100 bill there, because you start to have that. It's the same thing, having that feeling of having money and being
supported by money. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We've talked about lots of amazing, valuable things. And what I know is I can feel it. I hear your head speaking to us. There's a lot of people out there who are still really super overwhelmed about how to actually do this. So will you tell us how you actually work with people and how people can get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, first off, I created a lot of debt when I grew my business, and I didn't pay myself for 6 years. So I come into the conversation knowing what it's like to be in that space. And so the first thing we do is have a conversation. It's just that you can ask me anything you want. Sometimes it's bookkeeping. Sometimes they need a tax referral. Sometimes they just want somebody to hear the story and the pain behind what's been going on. And then I can help move them towards some type of direction. It doesn't always work with me, but sometimes it does. We have some free resources on the cash handling system, the first 3 steps on how to get started. But you can find all of that at moneyactiontips.com. And that's where we start. Now, if clients want to work with me on a regular basis, most of my work is done one-on-one. And so that I show up and I collaborate with them on whatever needs they have. if they want to create their financial plan, if they want to do some strategy sessions around how money is going to support them, or if they want to do a cash handling system, like the nuts and bolts of like how to put it in place and how to work through it. It's customized for whoever's at wherever they're at on their journey.
Awesome. So generous. Love it. And I love that you are supporting people like this, because a lot of us, especially in the heart-centered, like holistic practitioner world, it's almost against our belief system to give money our attention and to make it valuable. So if that's you, we get it. I've definitely been there. And it's actually a mindset shift to recognize that the more money a person like you is willing to have, the more people on earth who will be supported, and the more of an impact we can make with this paradigm shift. As we're stepping into the age of Aquarius, we need more empowered leaders, and we need more empowered leaders who are heart-centered and who are awake in the ways that y'all are. So thank you for being that person, and please empower yourself with paying attention to your money and coming up in the world of your finances, because it's a gift to not just you, but everyone who gets to witness you shine. Any last words of wisdom you'd like to leave people with, Connie?
Yeah, the only thing is that money is our friend, and it's going to be your best team member for your business. And like any team member, it needs some care, it needs some attention, it needs to know what it's going to do, and if it's doing a great job, and it needs to be celebrated. And if you can incorporate those things, money's going to show up for you in big ways so that you can make the big impact. Like you were saying, it's essential for us to change our paradigm about money and how we use it. Because if we want to make the big change we want to see in the world, it's going to require some resources, and money's going to be there with us.
Totally. Love it. So yeah, follow Connie Vander Zanden, go check out her offerings, and thank you all so much for staying tuned and listening to this fabulous conversation about money. Speaking of money, if you want to support this podcast and keep it commercial free, you can head over to wildheartsriseup.com/podcast and find some Patreon style links there for you. But whatever happens, keep asking big questions and taking bold action, because you are here for a reason. Have a great day.
Bye.